We've already predicted the big games, so those breakdowns are on the channel right now. But some big-time upset alerts, I think, still linger across the college football Week 1 slate. So the way we like to do this with these double-digit point spreads is I just like to give you a concern level. We're not outright picking the upsets. I'm giving you a concern level, and I'm telling you right here in our backyard in Nashville, Tennessee, Vandy is sneaking around. Virginia Tech's coming into town, favored by 13.5 right now over at FanDuel. And is the hype warranted? I've contributed to that with Virginia Tech. Is the hype warranted? You cannot overlook them. Virginia Tech's not in a place as a program that they get to look past an opener like this and they get to look down the road. All due respect, Bama's looking down the road. Bama fans are looking past Western Kentucky. Virginia Tech's not there yet, and they're going on the road. And I know it's Vandy, but you're still going into a place where there are some SEC caliber athletes on this roster. The model likes Vandy. We have already made Vandy plus 13.5 a Ramen Noodle Express best bet, but if you don't care about that, might I interest you in the fact that Jerry Kill is on this staff now. You remember him, and if you don't, research him, but also just the effect that Jerry Kill has had on teams in the past, and also a lot of the movement that happened on this Vanderbilt roster, sneaky good additions. Tim Beck, the other Tim Beck, the one that was the OC at New Mexico State last year. Before that, he was a D2 head coach for a decade, and they picked him up, and Clark Lee made him the offensive coordinator, but he brought a couple of quarterbacks with him, brought a running back with him, brought a tight end with him. So there are pieces from a pretty effective offense out at New Mexico State. They do some different stuff that they brought over, so it's not totally starting from scratch. It's a home situation for Vanderbilt. And if we look in our model here and we've got all the coaches graded, there is a really interesting, sneaky sort of coaching edge for Vandy in this game. When you look at the totality of staff, OCDC total staff, there's a slight edge to Vandy in the overall coaching grade. So they're getting 13.5 at home. I think this one could be closer than even the FanDuel experts think. Next up, I'm not as concerned about this one. By the way, the previous one is a solid 8 on my concern meter. This next one's a 4, only because I have no idea who's starting at quarterback from Michigan. Michigan's playing Fresno in the Big House. Ever since the App State game, every Michigan home opener, everyone talks about the App State game from like 20 years ago at this point. It has nothing to do with anything, but people still hearken back to it. And you know how rarely I use that word. However, I'm uneasy here because we've heard the talk out of camp up at Michigan about the quarterback position. And everyone, myself included, we just assumed Alex Orji will eventually lock down that starting spot over Davis Warren. And he hasn't. He hasn't locked down the starting spot. As recently as today, you can find people around Michigan that tell you, I think Davis Warren may start Saturday. Even if he doesn't, we think we may see both of them play. And here's the problem. I always hate that. I always hate it because when you talk like that, you're talking as if you can afford to do it in a game like this. Well, Michigan's favored by 20.5 in this game over at FanDuel right now. So there is separation, obviously, between the University of Michigan and Fresno State. But Fresno, and I don't want you to scoff at this because I'm trying to give you the profile of the team. Fresno went on the road and beat Purdue last year. Fresno beat Arizona State last year. These are not teams that are comparable to Michigan. I'm not suggesting they are, but they're a step up perceptionally in competition. And Mikey Keene, who's still the quarterback there, by the way, averaged a little over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in those 2 games. So they rose to the moment last year and now lost Tedford. So you never know what kind of galvanizing effect that has just from a psychological perspective for the roster as well. Now, having said that, Michigan's still got the defense Michigan's got. So this is the kind of game where they're favored by 20.5. They could score 29 and win the game. 29-6 is still good for a cover there. So I don't have immense concern about the outright upset potential. I have mild concern because even the offensive line, I'll probably talk to Kublik about this later when we bring him on, even the offensive line, there's just a blind assumption it's Michigan. They'll be good on the offensive line. Oh, okay, well, I don't need them to be good. I need them to be better than that. Good is tantamount to average in my own personal mind. Michigan's got to be better than good on the offensive line. They've been mixing and matching this week. Good options, but still mixing and matching. So a 4 on the upset concern meter for me there. I got one that's way off the radar. I'm about to hit you with a few of them that are way off the radar, but I'm telling you, you got to go deep on week 1. You can't just be paying attention to the main events. Do you know who Florida Atlantic plays this weekend? Do you know who the head coach at Florida Atlantic is? Little side test there. They're playing Michigan State. The head coach at Florida Atlantic is one Thomas Herman, street name Tom, used to be the head coach at Texas. We've got Aiden Childs, 18 years old, making his first start at quarterback for Michigan State. Jonathan Smith brought him over from Oregon State, the whole new staff in place. A lot of the roster is new. And so there's so much newness on this Michigan State staff, this Michigan State team, and you've got a coaching staff, I believe, very much that has the long game in mind. Not that they don't want to win this year, but they haven't come in like Mike Elko has at A&M, looked around and said, oh, we could win this year. And so the attitude, although I don't want you to misunderstand me, the attitude is not we're mailing a season in. The attitude is let's do what we can do this season, but our best is probably a couple years down the road. Florida Atlantic, as I said, is led by Tom Herman. The reason I mention that is because while you may not think Tom Herman has another big go-around as a major college football head coach in his future, he probably does feel that way. And guys like that look at situations like this. If you're the head coach at Florida Atlantic, you don't get many of them. You don't get to coach against the big boys. And this is a prime opportunity for him because he's probably got a sneaky little advantage with his skill guys out wide on the perimeter. I think that also he went and grabbed Marshall's quarterback to go along with that perimeter skill talent he has. I think this is a huge chance for him. And they are catching 13.5 right now. FAU, I think, will hang around with Michigan State. I have an 8 on the concern meter there. Love Jonathan Smith long-term. Love him long-term. Could be shaky out of the gate. Now, here's one that the model's picking up on. Actually, part of the model's picking up on it. I don't buy into it. So TCU goes to Stanford. TCU right now, actually, keep that up, Colin, immunity. So before I talk about that one, UCLA is at Hawaii. UCLA is favored by 14.5. Hawaii already played a game, as you know. We got a first-time head coach out at UCLA. We got a first-time college football offensive coordinator. Eric Bieniemy's been around the NFL forever, really pass-happy in the NFL, the most pass-happy of play callers in the NFL. He's now the UCLA offensive coordinator. They're going out there, and they got hit by the portal hard. Specifically, UCLA pass rush, UCLA secondary. Of course, you lost DeAnton Lynn across town to USC. Hawaii's 1-0 already, and UCLA's rolling in there, and they're laying 14.5. I got mild concern about this. A lot shaky, a lot unknown because it can't be known about UCLA. So I got a 6 on that one. Now back to the other one I was talking about. So TCU is at Stanford. TCU's laying 9.5. I've got to be honest with you. I love TCU in this game. I would be betting TCU in this game. I would put him on the Ramen Noodle Express if the model over here would cooperate, but it won't. And the model is built to be a failsafe in situations like this. TCU secondary has been fairly suspect. So has Stanford's. Stanford, the reason why the model is pegging this game, what if I told you Stanford has an overall staff coaching advantage here? I wouldn't think that. But then again, that's why I remove myself from this equation because my gut really doesn't matter. Gut's built Las Vegas. So we're going on cold, hard data over here. Stanford figures to be fairly significantly deeper over time this year at wide receiver, tight end. Kind of a one-man show last year. He was a really good one, but kind of a one-man show last year. They will have freshmen everywhere. They got like 9 or 10 freshmen on the two deep right now, all over the place. It's probably a higher number than that. So ton of unknown. That's why I certainly would never buy into Stanford here, but there is a surprise coaching edge, an edge Stanford. And Sonny Dykes beneath him on that coaching org chart there. It's not a lot of guys with a bunch of bright green arrows next to him. I don't know, because the same model that's telling me that tells me that TCU is one of the most sneaky teams in the Big 12. So I got a personal concern level of 5 there. I think TCU is going to get the job done. The model disagrees to a certain extent. And then another one that's way off the radar, but I am giving serious consideration to. Ohio is at Syracuse. Syracuse is thought to be a sleeper, sort of contending type team in the ACC because they have a really, really soft schedule. Dino Babers got fired there. Fran Brown got brought in. It's interesting how the public perceived that. The public looked at Dino Babers and said he's got to go. The model looks at Dino Babers and sees that he was 3 wins above roster expectancy. So it'll take your roster, and what should we expect out of this roster in terms of wins? Dino, like 3 wins north of that. So the model thought it was crazy that he got fired, but models don't run athletic departments, ADs do. A new head coach who has never staffed in his life has come in. Could be great at it, but we have no idea. And they are laying, what are they laying here? 17.5 to Ohio. Tim Albin, since he's taken over at Ohio, has been equal to, or actually I think in every case so far, he's been above expectancy relative to talent and schedule at Ohio. So they continue to punch above their weight. This is actually a game that I'm going to add right now to the Ramen Noodle Express because I don't want this line moving. So it's gotten north of 17. That's where we like it. We're adding Ohio plus 17.5 to the Ramen Noodle Express. As I have told you, best bets could come at any point in this show. Sometimes they don't come in the show. They could come on Friday Night Lines, which we'll do on Instagram Live tomorrow night, at Late Kick Josh. Make sure you're following. But there you go, Colin. I think that's our 5th best bet of the week. And I've probably got maybe a little hint at another one before we go off the air. But certainly I'll add some more tomorrow night. Make sure you're watching, at Late Kick Josh. So there you go. Upset concern on that one, by the way, a solid 7. Solid 7. And that's for a 17.5-point favorite, by the way. I have concerns about that one. Kyle McCord, new quarterback up there. I got it. I know the talking points. There's a lot of unknown. Too much unknown to me to be laying that many points.